I want to start by addressing a matter of utmost gravity regarding the transparency of this department and its compliance with federal law. Yesterday, I spent several hours at the department reviewing materials that were supposed to be unredacted, and I must say, what I found is deeply troubling. We are here today because the American people deserve answers, yet it seems nearly half of the required documents have been withheld. This is not just a procedural oversight, it is a direct defiance of the mandate set forth by the bill. Out of 3 million documents, the sheer volume of redactions is staggering. Notably missing was the client list that was claimed to be sitting on a desk a year ago. Where is it? Instead, I uncovered an 86-page prosecution memo from the Southern District of New York and a draft indictment from Florida targeting Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. These documents remain heavily redacted, even for members of Congress who have the legal authority to see them. There is no justification under the law for this level of secrecy. I am asking for a clear commitment today. Will you provide these documents in their unredacted form to this committee immediately? This is not a complex question, though it seems some want to hide behind the shield of privilege. Let's be clear. Legal privilege does not apply to materials that are essential for congressional oversight, especially when those materials involve criminal investigations of this magnitude. I have in my possession an email from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. It was unredacted in the version I saw, and it contained notes of statements made by Donald Trump regarding his prior relationship with Epstein. There is absolutely no reason for this information to be hidden from the public. There is no attorney-client privilege here because the communication was between two co-conspirators, not a lawyer and a client. The American people have a right to understand the full extent of the lies told about these relationships. It is shameful to see efforts to protect powerful individuals while simultaneously failing the survivors and victims of this horrific scheme. The only information that should have been redacted were the identities of the victims to protect their privacy, yet we see the exact opposite happening. The victims' information was left exposed in some cases, while the names of the powerful were scrubbed clean. This was not a mistake. It wasn't an accident caused by a tight 30-day deadline, especially when 75 days were actually taken for the review. We see an email titled Epstein Victim List, where 31 names are visible and only one is redacted. That is a conscious, intentional choice. It suggests a deliberate attempt to intimidate those who have already suffered enough. Last week, it was claimed that any victim who wanted to speak with the department had already done so. We have brave survivors sitting right here in this room today, and their presence tells a different story. When asked, not a single one of them had been granted a meeting with the Department of Justice to provide testimony or evidence. Every single one of them, or their legal representatives, reached out to offer cooperation, and every single one of them was either ignored or flatly denied. This is a total betrayal of the department's mission. These individuals are still willing to speak, still willing to seek justice, despite the intimidation tactics used against them. The department has failed in its duty to the public and to the survivors, choosing instead to use improper redactions as a shield for predators. It is time to stop the excuses, stop the yelling, and start providing the transparency that the law and the American people demand. We are not going to let this be buried under claims of privilege that do not exist. The clock is ticking on the truth, and we will continue to push until every unredacted page is turned over and every victim is finally heard by the institutions that were supposed to protect them in the first place. This is about accountability at the highest levels of our government and ensuring that no one, regardless of their status or political connections, is above the law or the reach of justice. Now, we must transition to a matter of profound national security and public safety, specifically focusing on the catastrophic failure of sanctuary policies that continue to undermine the rule of law across our great nation. It is essential that the American people understand exactly what we are referring to when we talk about sanctuary jurisdictions. These policies are often framed by their proponents in deceptive, innocuous terms, claiming they simply refuse to participate in federal immigration enforcement. But let's be very clear, this is not a passive exercise of local rights. It is an active, dangerous, and often cowardly obstruction of justice that places innocent American lives at risk every single day. Currently, sanctuary jurisdictions account for roughly 40% of the United States population. When we talk about a federal detainer, we are talking about a critical tool for law enforcement. A detainer is a formal request issued by federal officers to local or state authorities, asking them to maintain custody of an individual already in their system so that federal agents can take them into custody for deportation proceedings. In a functioning society, This should be a routine act of cooperation. However, in cities like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, and even in certain counties in North Carolina, these detainers are systematically ignored. Instead of handing over dangerous criminals to federal authorities, these jurisdictions choose to release them back onto the streets, into the very communities they have already victimized. This is not just a policy disagreement. It is a violation of federal law. These politicians are prioritizing the comfort of illegal aliens over the safety of their own legal constituents. I have here photographs of individuals that some of my colleagues would prefer you didn't see. Look at these names: individuals convicted of assault, homicide, arson, and rape. In New York, we see cases of illegal aliens convicted of heinous crimes being shielded from deportation. Why? Because the local leadership values their sanctuary status more than the lives of the people they were elected to protect. It is a betrayal of the highest order. While the other side of the aisle often speaks about victims, they are remarkably silent when the victims are Americans harmed by individuals who should have never been on our streets to begin with. Despite this obstruction from radical local officials, this administration has achieved historic milestones in restoring order. Under the current leadership, we have seen the lowest murder rate in over 125 years. We are seeing rapid declines in violent crime across 62 major cities. Robberies are down nearly 20%, and overall violent crime has dropped by almost 15% in just the last year. Even here in Washington, D.C., we have seen a reduction of nearly 30% since President Trump took office. These are not just statistics. They represent thousands of families who are safer today because of a commitment to law and order. Look at the work of the DEA: over 200,000 kilograms of cocaine and 78,000 kilograms of methamphetamine seized. Every kilogram seized is a potential life saved from the scourge of addiction and overdose. Furthermore, the Department of Justice has maintained an incredible 92% success rate at the Supreme Court, proving that our legal arguments are sound and our commitment to the Constitution is unwavering. We are also aggressively attacking the rampant waste, fraud, and abuse that has plagued our system, such as the billions of tax dollars being drained by fraudulent schemes in places like Minnesota. President Trump remains fully committed to rooting out this corruption in every city across this country. We requested more resources and more time to thoroughly vet files and protect victims, but those requests were met with refusal by the opposition. They would rather play politics than provide the necessary runway for justice. But we will not be deterred. We will continue to fight for the rule of law, for the enforcement of our borders, and for the safety of every American citizen who deserves to live in a country where the law is respected and criminals are held accountable, regardless of the sanctuary status of the city they hide in. We will continue to expose the failures of these cowardly policies until every community is safe once again. Now, as we move into the final analysis of this situation, it is imperative to focus on the broader implications of judicial integrity and the relentless pursuit of justice that defines our current mission. We must examine the stark contrast between those who weaponize the legal system for political theater and those who work tirelessly to uphold the constitutional rights of every citizen. The Department of Justice, under this leadership, has achieved a staggering 92% success rate before the Supreme Court. This is not merely a number, it is a testament to the rigorous legal standards, the intellectual depth, and the unwavering commitment to the originalist interpretation of our laws. While our critics spend their time crafting narratives of obstruction, we have been busy winning the most significant legal battles of our generation. We are securing the foundations of our democracy by ensuring that the executive branch operates within its lawful boundaries, while simultaneously protecting the safety of the American people. This success extends to our uncompromising stance on fiscal responsibility. For too long, we have seen billions of hard-earned taxpayer dollars siphoned away through elaborate schemes of waste, fraud, and abuse. In states like Minnesota and beyond, we have uncovered massive networks designed to exploit government programs. These are not victimless crimes. Every dollar stolen from the federal treasury is a dollar taken from the security of our borders, the education of our children, and the care of our veterans. President Trump has made it clear this administration will not tolerate the plunder of our national resources. We are dismantling these criminal enterprises brick by brick, ensuring that public funds are used for their intended public good. This brings us back to the most critical element of our work, the protection of the vulnerable and the pursuit of justice for survivors. As we discussed earlier regarding the Epstein files, the quest for truth is often met with resistance from those who fear transparency. We sought the necessary amendments, the additional resources, and the extended runway required to meticulously go through every page, every email, and every lead to ensure that no stone was left unturned. We wanted to provide the survivors with the thorough investigation they have deserved for decades. Unfortunately, those efforts were met with partisan refusal. It is a deep irony that those who claim to champion the rights of the marginalized are the same ones who block the very resources needed to bring their predators to justice. But let me be perfectly clear, their refusal to cooperate will not stop us. We will find ways to protect these victims, to honor their bravery, and to ensure that their voices are not silenced by bureaucratic red tape or political posturing. The data doesn't lie. Violent crime is plunging across our nation because we have returned to the fundamental principle that criminals should be behind bars, not walking our streets. We are seizing record amounts of deadly narcotics that poison our youth, and we are holding sanctuary jurisdictions accountable for their role in undermining national security. We are building a future where the law is applied equally to all, where the borders are secure, and where the government serves the people rather than its own interests. This is the path forward. One of transparency, strength, and an unbreakable resolve to see justice done, no matter how long it takes or who stands in our way. We owe it to the survivors, we owe it to the taxpayers, and we owe it to the future of this great republic to remain steadfast in this mission. We will continue to fight, we will continue to win, and we will never apologize for putting the safety and the rights of the American people first. This is our promise, and we are delivering on it every single day through action, results, and an absolute dedication to the truth. The era of excuses is over. The era of accountability has arrived. Every decision we make is guided by the principle that justice delayed is justice denied, and we refuse to let the people of this country down. We are moving forward with a clear vision and a firm hand, ensuring that the light of truth shines into the darkest corners of our history, bringing closure to the victims and security to our nation as a whole. In concluding this critical examination of our current legal and social landscape, we must look toward the long-term consequences of the decisions being made today within these halls of power. The integrity of our judicial system depends entirely on the consistency of its application. Yet what we have witnessed is a bifurcated reality where political expediency often dictates the flow of information. When we talk about the thousands of pages of redacted documents, we are not just talking about ink on paper. We are talking about the erosion of public trust. This trust is the very bedrock upon which our republic stands, and once it is fractured by a lack of transparency, it becomes nearly impossible to rebuild. We have seen how the Department of Justice can be utilized as both a shield and a sword, depending on who is holding the handle. It is our duty to ensure that this department remains an objective arbiter of the law, focused on the pursuit of truth rather than the protection of powerful associates or the advancement of a specific political agenda. The survivors who stood today are a living reminder that the human cost of legal negligence is immeasurable. They have waited years for an acknowledgement of their suffering, only to be met with a wall of silence and administrative hurdles that seem designed to exhaust their resolve. But their resolve is not easily broken, and neither is ours. We must demand that the Department of Justice reopens its doors to those it has ignored, providing a platform for their evidence and their stories to be heard without fear of intimidation or reprisal. Furthermore, the issue of sanctuary jurisdictions is not merely a debate about immigration, it is a fundamental question of whether we are a nation of laws or a nation of suggestions. If local officials are permitted to cherry-pick which federal mandates they follow, the entire structure of our federalist system begins to crumble. We cannot have a country where the safety of a citizen depends on which side of a city line they happen to stand. The statistics we have discussed, the dramatic drops in murder rates, the massive seizures of narcotics, and the successful prosecution of fraudulent actors, prove that when we prioritize enforcement and accountability, the results are life-saving. These successes should not be undermined by local policies that prioritize the protection of criminal elements over the safety of law-abiding residents. We must continue to incentivize cooperation between local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies to create a seamless web of security that leaves no room for predators to hide. As we move forward, let us be guided by the principle that transparency is the best disinfectant for corruption. Whether it is the unredacting of emails that link high-profile figures to criminal enterprises or the auditing of government programs to prevent the theft of taxpayer funds, our commitment to the light of truth must remain absolute. We have the tools, we have the evidence, and we have the mandate from the American people to restore order and ensure that justice is served for all, not just a privileged few. The road ahead will undoubtedly be met with further resistance from those who benefit from the status quo. but we are prepared to meet that resistance with the facts, the law, and an unwavering dedication to our constitutional values. We will not be silenced by claims of privilege that serve only to hide the truth, nor will we be deterred by the political posturing of those who seek to obstruct our progress. This is a pivotal moment for our nation, a time to decide if we will allow the shadows of the past to dictate our future or if we will demand the accountability that is necessary for true progress. We choose the latter. We choose a future where every victim finds justice, where every criminal faces the consequences of their actions, and where the Department of Justice once again becomes a beacon of integrity for the entire world to see. This is the work we were sent here to do, and we will continue to perform it with the seriousness and the urgency that the American people expect and deserve. The fight for truth is never easy, but it is always worth it, and we are just getting started in our efforts to bring every hidden detail into the light. To the